The ceasefire in Gaza is due to begin in under 24 hours. Mediators in Qatar have announced it will take effect from 08:30 a.m. Sunday in Gaza. That's 06:30 GMT. The Qatar Foreign Ministry made the announcement on social media, saying the parties had agreed that the ceasefire would begin on Sunday morning, also warning inhabitants to take precaution, exercise the utmost caution and wait for directions from official sources. After hours of discussion, the Israeli cabinet gave final approval to the ceasefire and hostage release deal with Hamas. The first hostages are due to be released as early as Sunday under the first phase of the agreement. Meanwhile, sirens have been heard across central Israel this morning, with reports of explosions over Jerusalem. The Israeli military says it intercepted a missile launched from Yemen. Let's get the latest with our correspondent John Donison, who is in Jerusalem. John, we'll talk about those sirens in just a moment. First of all, bring us up to date on the hostage ceasefire deal and the details that we do have about how it will come into effect tomorrow.
Well, the struggle to get this deal done went late into the night. The Israeli government actually broke with protocol and worked into the Jewish Sabbath to get this deal finally approved. It wasn't without controversy. Two ministers, one has said he's going to resign in protest against the deal because he says it lets Hamas off the hook, and another has said he will resign in 6 weeks' time if the war doesn't resume. But the deal is going to go ahead. Now, there is some confusion about when it's going to start. The Qataris, as you say, saying it will start at 8:30 local time, the ceasefire tomorrow morning. We've not had that confirmed from either the Israelis or the Palestinian side, but it will happen on Sunday, and we will see the first 3 Israeli hostages freed in exchange for Palestinian prisoners.
It seems that some of the detail is still yet to be ironed out, John. I'm reading on the Reuters news agency that Hamas has said that the mechanism of the release of Israeli hostages that it holds in Gaza will depend on the number of Palestinian prisoners Israel would free. So still some negotiation, it would seem.
It seems so, but it's going to be pretty difficult to stop it happening now. We understand the Israeli hostages, those initial 3, will first be handed over to the Red Cross and then brought out of Gaza and taken to hospital for medical checkups. We've had the list of Palestinian names of the prisoners who are going to be freed in exchange, and some of them pretty high profile. There's a chap called Zakaria Zubaydah. He is a former leader of the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade militant group in Jenin in the West Bank. He was jailed for murder, attempted murder, planting explosives, including one attack that killed 6 Israelis back in 2002. So there is probably going to be some wrangling of how this all proceeds, but we are just waiting now until it goes ahead.
OK, John in Jerusalem, thank you. Well, to get a better understanding of the humanitarian situation on the ground in Gaza, here's Rosalia Bolan, a spokesperson from the UN children's charity UNICEF, who is based in Mawasi Rafah in southern Gaza.
Humanitarian situation remains extremely dire. You know, families here are experiencing just utter deprivation for over a year now. They're in need of everything. They don't have shelter protecting them from the elements. They live in makeshift tents or in schools that have been turned into shelters that are very crowded. I visited one a couple of weeks ago. 8,000 people in a single school. You had over 25 people in a classroom. There was a chickenpox outbreak. So very unsanitary conditions. People also experience lacks of food. There's severe hunger that continues to plague really the entirety of the Gaza Strip. Diseases are rampant. If you fall ill, if you have a pre-existing medical condition, it's hard to get the medical care that you need. I met with a teenage boy who has diabetes. He struggles because when he does get his hands on insulin, he doesn't have a refrigerator in his tent to keep the insulin cooled. So children are cold, they're ill, they're wet, they're not really well equipped to face the winter. I see lots of children walking around in summer clothes, lots of children walking around barefoot, which is a problem also because of the rubble everywhere and the solid waste. I see children scavenging through that, looking for things to eat, for plastic scraps to strengthen their tents. Lots of children queuing with jerry cans to fetch water because access to clean water remains an issue. So a very, very dire situation here in Gaza that threatens the lives of children. It's not just the bombs and the bullets, it's also these living conditions. Well, we are extremely, extremely hopeful that this ceasefire is going to last, not just that it takes effect tomorrow, but it's also critical that it will last. In the first place, just to put an end to the ever-rising death toll. Since the announcement of the ceasefire, attacks have continued unabated, and there's 30 children that have been reported killed since the announcement of the deal. So that has to stop. And simultaneously, we indeed need aid, but also commercial supplies to be scaled up to address the suffering of families in Gaza. The halt in fighting by itself, on its own, will not necessarily automatically address this suffering because the needs are so tremendously high. And if I may point out, it's not just aid that is needed, it's supplies of the commercial sector that have to come into Gaza at scale as well. Humanitarian actors like UNICEF, we bring in very specialized supplies, for instance, when it comes to hunger and malnutrition. For the tens of thousands of children who suffer of acute malnutrition here in Gaza, we bring in very specialized supplies, nutritional supplements, things like plumpy nuts, therapeutic food, high energy biscuits. But ultimately what their families need is to be able to access some form of market economy where they can purchase dairy products, meat, fish, vegetables, fruit, so they can have a diversified and healthy family dinner. So that has to go hand in hand, really.
Rosalia Boland there. This is the live shot from the Israel-Gaza border. This is the scene looking into Gaza right now. You can see smoke in the sky there, the distance. This as the ceasefire is due to come into effect in less than 24 hours' time.